Welcome back, and what a delight to have with us for a few moments today, Dr. Paul Hokemeyer. He's an addiction expert, licensed marriage and family therapist, certified clinical trauma professional. You have probably seen him on some of the smaller networks like Fox, CNN, and Good Morning and The Oz Show. But today, he's made it to the big time. He's on the Dove TV network, and we have a lot to talk to him about. Dr. Hokemeyer, how are you, my friend?
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, listen, you get involved in a lot of things, and I guess one of the things that we're concerned about is some of these addictions that a lot of these big celebrities get involved in, and of course, most recently, the whole incident with Prince and his death. I guess we as average people can't help but, I guess, surmise that he had a drug problem. Is that true?
Well, that's, of course, what we want to think. We want to find a conclusion. We want an immediate answer to this. When a 57-year-old man who seems, from all appearances, to be very vibrant passes, it's a question. It's a mystery. And I think that we need to move slowly. We need to be careful about drawing conclusions here. And we just need to wait for the science to come out and tell us exactly what happened. And then we can talk about whether or not he had a drug problem. I mean, from all appearances, though, he had a profoundly strong faith, and he had an incredible connection to the Lord. And so I think that's where most of us, people of faith in particular, are wondering, how could someone who has such a huge celebrity presence in the world, what happened? So I think that's a more interesting question.
Well, I know he's in the hands of a just God, and I think we have to rest on that. But it does appear to be somewhat of a dichotomy where you would have a person who's supposedly strong in faith, but lifestyle doesn't necessarily support that. As a therapist, how do you weave through that?
Well, I treat a number of celebrities in my practice, and there's a huge disconnect between their public persona and their internal reality. And I think that one of the main challenges that celebrities struggle with is the dehumanization that occurs, so that they become objects, that we as mortal people project all of these expectations on them. I mean, Prince in particular was not just a celebrity, he was an icon. And I think that in some people's eyes, he was a deity. I mean, we look at the news and you hear stories of people worshiping him like a god. And I think what was extraordinary about Prince is that he had this profound spiritual connection, and he was profoundly connected to his Lord and the community that shared his Lord. And if you look at some of the stories, the Wall Street Journal just did a very interesting article on his connection to his faith community, and the humility that he had in that community, and the humanness that he had in that community. And so I think we need to be very careful about looking at for the truth in a celebrity's external appearance or external presentation. I think that we need, as Christians, I think as people of faith, that we need to go deeper than that, and we need to look at the person's humanness. And that's where I really hope that we're able to go with the Prince conversation.
I think we experienced that through Elvis Presley and Johnny Cash. I mean, there were two celebrities that really struggled between the persona they had to maintain their image as a celebrity and what they were really struggling with, who they wanted to be as a person.
And, this isn't new. I mean, this history is full of these stories in terms of, the names are legend. Marilyn Monroe, Judy Garland, Whitney Houston, Philip Seymour Hoffman. I mean, the list goes on. It seems like every month there's another iconic celebrity who passes before their time. And I think that speaks to the stress of being a celebrity. I think that speaks to the dehumanization that occurs when a person is a celebrity, and how difficult it is for them to find grounding in the world and find connection. And I think that that's where people of faith are sort of saying, in terms of Prince, there's this huge, what seems like on the surface this huge disconnect between his external presentation and how he communicated with the world. Sometimes it was vulgar, sometimes it was over the top, and yet being the true essence of who he was, which was this profoundly spiritual, humble man. And for many celebrities, that division becomes just too hard to hold. The tension that gets created in those two dichotomies becomes just, it becomes toxic, and it becomes, well, it's destructive. It's profoundly destructive.
But you know what's interesting about this? I mean, I guess you as a therapist, you could see the dichotomy and probably dissect it a whole lot better than the average person. You're the pro. But I think the struggle we have is, why can't this so-called profound faith connection that these celebrities have override the addiction or the problem or even the lifestyle? I mean, that equation doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. They may have a deep spiritual connection, but it didn't seem to work. And so a lot of people are left to criticize, and I know that you want to prevent that, but how are we supposed to balance that in our head?
Well, I think we need to be careful about the Prince. We don't know that it was a drug overdose. He could have died of natural causes. He could have had a heart attack. I mean, 57-year-old men die of heart attacks far too frequently. And so I think we need to be careful. I think that as an addictions therapist, as a therapist who works in the realm of addiction, I know that a person to recover from the disease of addiction, which is profoundly isolating, they need to transcend that and connect with something bigger than themselves. Ideally, it's a faith in something bigger than themselves, in a spiritual existence. But addiction is tricky, and addiction is deadly, and it's seductive, and it's powerful. And so, who knows? I think the Lord knows, but I think that we as mortals, we struggle for these answers, don't we? And sometimes we have to go in faith, and we have to believe that the Lord has a bigger plan here, and trusted at that. I mean, there are definite actions that we can take to resolve an addictive disorder. Typically, those involve abstinence, and those involve connecting to something bigger than themselves, participating in a community of other people who are recovering, participating in a faith community. It's not perfect. It's not perfect. I
certainly understand that. As a therapist, isn't this, and I don't know the professional term, but isn't this a two lifestyle? I mean, you got two lifestyles in one person. I don't know. Is this bipolar? What is this? Is this split personality? What is this?
It's actually it is a split. I wouldn't say it's a difference between a public persona and a personal persona, and it's a difference between what one presents to the world, particularly people who present to the world in a false sense, a false self, do so because they don't have the ego strength, they don't have the internal capacity to be true and honest with who they are. And the universe rewards them in such an extraordinary way by maintaining this false sense of self. So that's particularly the case with Prince. So he received an enormous amount of external validation, which is quite tangible, from being a celebrity, from being an icon. And that's profoundly seductive. The good news is he did recognize that there was something deeper, that there's something more meaningful, and that was his faith. That's his faith in the Lord. And so it's a battle, isn't it? It's a tension, and it's a tension to see, to balance those two profoundly, those profoundly strong forces.
Where I'm struggling, Doctor, is that we see it in politicians, we see it in preachers. You see it, who they are in front of people and who they are behind the scenes. There's certainly a difference there. You see it in celebrities all the time. And yet they claim to have this relationship with God that is supposedly their anchor. And I pray to God that it is. but you would think that they would take on more the nature of God than they would of the personality and the celebrity, and that would overshadow who they are and what they're doing. I mean, somewhere there's a disconnect here, and I'm struggling with that.
Nature of faith, isn't it? I mean, I think that faith requires trust in the unknown, in the unseen. That's the essence of faith, isn't it? And so that's very difficult to have true faith, because life is stressful, life is uncertain, life can be really scary. And so to have faith, it isn't tangible. You can't touch it really, you can't feel it, you can't add it up, you can't see it in your bank account. And I think that's the fundamental issue of faith, is true faith requires extraordinary courage. True faith requires trust in the unseen and the unknown. And celebrity and external success is the complete opposite. And God gave us free will, didn't he? So we can choose this path of faith, or we can choose this other path. And it's not back and forth between those two choices.
Let me just say to our viewers and listeners before we run out of time here, Dr. Hokemeyer.com, and that's HOKEMEYER.com. And what's at your website? Quickly, what's at your website?
Just a bit about who I am and what I do and my practice.
Okay. Hey, nice to have you. Let's stay in touch. Now that you made it to the big time, we'll get in we'll get in touch with you again, okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, Dr. Hokemeyer, you can go to HOKEMEYER.com. And perhaps you've seen him on The Oz Show, Good Morning America, Fox News, CNN, but today you've seen him on theDove. He's made it. All right, we'll see you next time.
I'm Paulina Leiser, producer of Focus Today. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to check our other videos at theDove.us.